The seating of the delegation from the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party has political and moral significance. Far beyond the borders of Mississippi are the halls of this convention.
In 1964, Mississippi had the lowest African American voting rate in the country, with a record low of 6.7%. The ability to vote was one of the many prominent rights African Americans desired after their emancipation. This right was held captive by the government, as well as pro-white supremacy organizations such as the Ku Klux Klan, and was later earned among the black community through the 15th Amendment.
Despite Mississippi's black voting rate of 6.7%, when SNCC came into town, they were able to bring about 80,000 black voters for the mock trials, and this would eventually lead to be the foreground of real voting within Mississippi 2 years after the whole incident.
Would you like to go to both of these morning places?
No.
During this time, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, otherwise known as the SNCC or SNCC, had arrived in Mississippi to help provide support for African Americans and urge them to register in voting, but white citizens had a negative reaction to this, causing an increase of violence and threats towards blacks. The SNCC had seen the outcome of their arrival, and to combat this, they would then come up with the Freedom Vote campaign. The Freedom Vote campaign was incredibly influential, serving as a foundation of voting rights for the black communities in Mississippi. The SNCC had hoped to have as much of an impact as a figure like Martin Luther King Jr. The Freedom Vote campaign served as a great trial run. The campaign was sort of a trial or mock voting election to boost black interest in voting and proved to be very successful, bringing in about 80,000 black voters for the mock election.
And here's to the people of Mississippi, who say the folks up north, they just don't understand, and they tremble in the shadows at the thunder of the Klan. Oh, the sweating of their...
In an interview with Bethany Jacobs, a black woman among the dozen arrested for registering to vote in 1964, she was asked about her intentions after being freed from prison.
Well, it's funny you use the word freed from the cells because that's not exactly the word fit for people of my kind. I'm African American. Must I stress the word American in that? I was, after all, born on American soil, but somehow you and your kind of people are more American than I. This country's decisions are based on white votes. Black people have no say in those matters, although we are impacted by them just as much as you all are.
Jacobs, along with the majority of other volunteers, were harassed and discriminated when they entered the courthouse. The black voters knew they would have to face the prejudice of the Mississippi government along with the white mob mentality, but they still went to vote.
Me and my siblings, 3 brothers and 2 sisters, we all grew up under this oppression. White supremacy is built upon our tolerance, and the year is 1964, yet so many of all Americans are not aware of the potential power of the oppressed. If all blacks would have the courage to unite and revolt, maybe some liberty would be achieved. Still, I refuse to sit back and be deprived of my voice. 1 month ago, I felt inspired and motivated to be an equal and inspired to fight for my liberty. I, along with my other educated comrades over there, we went down to the good old building that's supposed to serve justice. We were at the courthouse, ready to make our entrance. A premonition overcasted me as I stood before it. I hadn't even said a single word yet. I'd already been giving dirty, demeaning looks by the whites standing outside.
Mr. Chairman, and to the Credentials Committee, it was the 31st of August in 1962 that 18 of us traveled 26 miles to the county courthouse in Indianola to try to register to become first-class citizens.
One of the most memorable voting rights activists was Fannie Lou Hamer with her infamous speech to the Credentials Committee. During her unforgettable testimony, President Lyndon Johnson would then cut her speech short in an attempt to keep her from causing a stronger argument than the attending Martin Luther King Jr. could dream of. This plan backfired, and instead, her speech was played over and over in the days to come.
Oh, I hope I left a big impact. Oh, yes, I do. I merely came here to help show the oppression us black Mississippians have faced. Our right to vote hasn't been simply stripped away. It was never really given. And instead we were thrown into jail. To vote, to even register, is a major part of being an American, a free one at that. To sit members of the Mississippi Democratic Party would prove more beneficial than these inhuman white Democratic delegates, and that is all I truly wish to argue.
With the combined help of the SNCC and those alike, such as Fannie Lou Hamer, the goal they strive for would soon be achieved. There was no direct increase in voting immediately after the influence of the SNCC, but the accomplishments undoubtedly laid the groundwork for it. 2 years after these events, black voting rates would rise from its record low of 6.7% to 60%, increasing by over 10 times the original amount.
And here's to the schools of Mississippi, where they're teaching all the children that they don't have to care. All the rudiments of hatred are present everywhere, and every single classroom is a factory of despair. And there's nobody learning such a foreign word as fair. Whoa.